Welcome to the Good, Better, Betterness podcast. We're here to get real about what really matters, not accolades or achievement, not doing more or having it all, but stripping away the extra so that you can be more present, more grounded, more rested, and more you. We're your hosts and co-founders of WellRise, Denise
and Kayla. The Good, Better, Betterness podcast is a monthly chat with and for Black women about what self-care is and how you can make it an intentional part of every single day. We share real stories with real women who are devoted to living a life rooted in better wellness and living in harmony with the world around them. Take a seat, take a breath, and explore how deep and radical self-care can transform your life. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Good, Better, Betterness podcast. I am your host, Kayla, along with my co-host, Denise.
Hey there, guys. Today's episode is all about career and workplace dynamics and how that intersects with wellness and self-care. We're exploring the ever-important work-life balance and navigating those workplace challenges that can sometimes leave us feeling a little depleted.
Absolutely. Preacher. I'm feeling that already, and it's Monday. But today we're joined to help us through this conversation with a very special guest who needs no introduction, absolutely no introduction from me, because she's one of my very good friends, Catherine Wheeler. She is a cultural engineer for people. I'm excited for you to be here. You're good. Now, Catherine Wheeler is a cultural engineer for people-centric organizations. She is the founder of Pivot 180. You know, that's how I look at that every time I think about Pivot 180. She's a team facilitator, keynote speaker, a coach to leaders and teams. Catherine, welcome to the show.
So glad to be here. What's up?
Absolutely. The pleasure is ours, honestly. We are excited to have you here. And I know that, I met you several years ago, but Kayla here and you are actually best friends. So I'm really excited. I think the conversations flow a lot easier when, we already know who you are. You already know who we are. And we're here to just have a conversation about stuff that really, really matters. So.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to be easy on her, though. Is that what you're thinking? Because I'm going to bring that fire. Are you ready, Catherine?
Okay, girl. Okay, girl.
It's the nervous, your voice gets higher and be like, what is happening? Okay, so to start it all off, let's just do an icebreaker, Catherine. I'm going to give you a quote, and I want you to think about a famous Black woman that might have said quote. And let's just see if you can guess it. I know. It's okay. I'll give you clues, friend. It's fine. Okay. Quote, the most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. It's kind of generic. Oh, that is actually very close, in my opinion. But no, not yet. She wrote a book that became a play and a movie and then a remake.
Ooh. Okay, I don't know.
Broadway.
I'm not good with
Fantasia.
Who?
Fantasia. Whoopi Goldberg.
It's not giving.
You are literally throwing a blank. Until you do right by me.
Oh, what's that girl's name?
Who wrote that?
Oh my geez.
It starts with an A.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get it because I'm stressing too hard about it. But I know exactly. I can see her face. I can see her.
Yes. Her whole thing. Alice Walker. It's fine. It's fine.
Yes, I was like, I could see her in the fields with Oprah when they were on I couldn't figure it out. Yep.
Right. They were talking about how they remade this. Yep. I remember I saw it too. It was so good.
She was.
All right. Fine. Let's just call it a tie. Me and you worked that out together. I love it.
We definitely did. I sucked.
But I don't want to lose the quote. I'm just gonna read it one more time just so that we have it.
Yes.
and then I'm gonna say who it's by. The most common way the most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any. Once again, quote by Alice Walker. And thank you for playing our fun little game here, Catherine. There was no listen.
It's fine. I don't need it. I don't need
to go on whether you get these things right or wrong. All right, let's get down to business here. You've had quite the career journey, transitioning from a full-time corporate role to becoming a successful entrepreneur, consultant, and all of the things. What initially prompted you to make that leap? Can you dive in and share a little bit about kind of what that transition was like for you?
Yeah. So I spent 13 years in my corporate career. So kind of same company, just moving into different roles, which is probably really uncommon for like women our age to spend like so much time in one place. I had a lot of fun. I really loved the things that I was doing. And I don't really have like some like boom moment, but I really just got sick of people. I mean, I was just like, I don't think they're very smart. I'm tired of giving them a lot of intellectual property of mine. And I think also like, I realized that my impact could only be so deep and so wide inside of the container of corporate, right? And so I was like, what would it look like if I tried to do this for myself? Like, what would it look like if I, if a different configuration of this was real for me? But I also want to be like really clear for the people who are listening. Like I felt like deep purpose in my job. Like I had a lot of autonomy. I did a lot of really dope things. And so I was never like, oh, I must escape. Like that's not how I felt at all, which is actually was the conflict of actually leaving. Because I was like, I'm fine. I make a good salary. I'm chilling. Like this fits for my life. But I think when I started to consider what my own impact is, and how I can make that more expansive, it was like, I really actually have no choice but to not be here. So that was when I decided, it was like, all right, let me start figuring out what this transition needs to look like, to not be problematic to my family, but also to honor the work that I've done here. And to make sure that as I transition, I'm really proud of the way that I do it, that I'm not angry, that I'm not feeling all the feels, And so that is why I chose to transition, impact, but also just being really thoughtful about what did I want my life to look like, and very much in line with the quote. And I was like, oh yeah, you actually are not powerless in making your life be what you want it to be. You actually don't have to watch everybody on Instagram do the things that you want to do. You can try and do it yourself. So, and here we are.
I love it. I love being a witness to how you modeled that for yourself or for other people just by being yourself in that. I've seen you coach and help many women, right? Empower them to either leave their job because they weren't, right, feeling empowered. Mm-hmm. And it's to the point of this quote. Again, it's like, you do have the power, sis. You are the magic. Like your IP is the magic, right? They can't do it without you. They can never compensate you for as much as you're technically quote unquote worth, right? There's no number that could ever get there. So I love that about your journey. So many of us dream of leaving corporate. Me, and becoming our own boss. It's a process. It's a process. We're gonna get there. But it's not always sunshine and rainbows. What are some of the unexpected challenges you've encountered as an entrepreneur? And how do you personally manage to maintain harmony between work life, like these days, especially now? This is your second year in, right?
Yeah. Yep. Year 2. Let's see. First of all, this journey is not for everybody. I think we had to be very clear. It's not. And I think that like there are a lot of entrepreneur evangelists trying to disciple people into this space. And like, you really got to be really thoughtful about what you are made to do. I think that's really important. For me, that's a faith alignment. But it's not for everybody, unintended consequences of this journey. So I would say one is that I actually love working. And I always knew that, but I saw it differently here, which is like, yay, rah, rah, but actually can be like really problematic to your health, right? When you fully enjoy working. I just love business. I always have. I'm obsessed with it. And I know that. I have a little bit of an addictive personality. And so one of the things that I didn't account for was that the lack of boundaries that like a corporate situation might create wasn't created for me on this side. And so it could really mimic diligence and whatever and be really problematic. So yeah, I was just working too much. I was just doing team too much all the time. I would also say too, like when you're doing it, there's not a lot of blueprint and a lot of decisions. I think you really see your most confident self, but also your least confident self sometimes in the same moments and minutes of doing business. And so it's like, oh, there were some areas I really wasn't as confident in myself that I thought that I was. And I needed to reconcile that. Like, where is that coming from? So it's almost like, you realize you have all these traumas that you didn't know you had until you have to create business and create the culture that you want for other people. But that means you got to deal with your own stuff. So I probably had a little bit of PTSD from my corporate job, and I didn't even know. I was good there. But then on this side, I was like, oh, wait, my feelings was hurt for real. Okay. Let me deal with that so that I don't create that environment for the people that I have to work with, that I get to work with. So I would probably say those were the top things that I was like, oh, like one, I had some work hurt, and I was like, oh, I need to work through some of that. But two, I was just working a lot. I didn't consider that I would need to create boundaries for myself and my work to like be really healthy, and how I approach the work.
That's good. Do you feel like those boundaries are something that you quote, not really miss, but right, like you appreciate, I guess, about corporate, that the boundaries are there. You can kind of shut down at 5, or there's just certain things like you don't have to, right, think through.
Yeah.
Now you are the accounting department and the legal department and
the marketing department and the operations team. Yeah, it's a vibe.
Right.
Yeah. And you are that for real. Like, if you want to have a successful business, and that's what I'm saying. Like one of the best things I think I did before I left corporate was I started to treat my corporate job like my client. It was so good for my soul because it helped me to understand, this is gonna sound bad, but like sometimes we get arrogant and thinking about all that we give to companies and don't actually realize what they're giving back to us, right? And like what structures and what things are in place that actually have benefited us, have helped us, right? And so one of the things that I think, to your point, Kayla, I did miss a little bit of the structure. And I was like, oh, okay, it's fun to be out here wild and free until that actually doesn't work. You know what I mean? And everybody thinks about, oh, the culture they want, this company sucks, it's not good culture. And then you have to build it. You have to create it. And then you have to bring people to it. And it's a lot more challenging than people actually think that it is. So those things were just kind of nuances of the process that I was like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I was doing this under the umbrella of this organization, and it was a lot easier to do it that way.
I think for us, as we're building as well, I can think of all the things. Like there's a part that's very exciting, right? Because you do get to build it. You get to build the culture. You get to define the things, and then you have to do it. Like you actually have to do it. And as you grow and more people become a part of your team, you have to think about, wait, what does this actually look like and feel like? Because every person you add to the team changes the entire dynamic. The entire dynamic. Calls go differently now, right? It's a little weird. It's just a lot to take on, especially for startups that are like really trying to grow quickly. But back to like that self-care piece. I know you said you were working super hard. I remember those days seeing you. And unfortunately, we're very similar in this, right? Where we're addicted to that business aspect, obsessed about it and obsessed about doing it the right way and growing and all those things. What were some of the things that you did and kind of the approach you've had to take to help find some of those structures for yourself? Or how do you, take time for yourself in knowing this about yourself now, especially again after year 1?
Yeah, I think so year 1 was crazy because I had my own consultancy, but I was also building a business with my husband, right? So we were doing double duty. I was doing double duty. And I'm a pretty chill personality. I absorb a lot. And I was like, it's fine. It's fine. You know what I mean? And I actually felt fine. Truly. I felt fine. Um, and then probably in February, like my body broke. Like I think that's the best way to put it. Like I don't know. Like my life drastically changed in a matter of like 2 weeks. Like encountered some health issues, could not drive, couldn't go anywhere by myself. My body was having episodes beyond my control sporadically, right? And I think what that helped me to quickly understand was that we absorb a lot more than we feel sometimes, right? And so I was like, okay. And it had to make me like really, it made me really in touch with like trying to figure out like, oh, what are my emotions, right? Like, what are the things that I'm feeling and experiencing? And some of that came from corporate, right? Like, I was the buffer for a lot of departments, a lot of teams, first Black woman to do this. For all, it's cool being the first until it's not, right? Because you take a lot of the brunt of all the things. Like, there is no pathway for you, but there's also not a lot of grace for you either. And you're everybody's superhero until you're not. And I'm like, oh, I absorbed all of that. Kind of like on Black Panther when his suit absorbed all of the force. And then like I was like, oh, that's what's been happening. So what I say is
Except
now,
for you didn't have a suit.
except I didn't have a suit. And yeah. And also I didn't know what the heck was going on. You know what I mean? I was like, what is happening? And so I think what has changed, one is like my own awareness of my limitations, right? And I think that's a big thing for Black women, like because culturally we are so dynamic, and because societally we do absorb a lot, it can be really easy for us actually not to be expressive or thoughtful of like what we actually feel. Saying things like, I am sad, or like, this bothered me, or like, I'm not feeling it today, versus like, it's fine. You know what I mean? And just like being really thoughtful. So I think that's one major thing that's changed. I'm a lot more, I'm using words to say like, oh yeah, that made me sad, or I don't like that, and just trying to be more in tune with myself. I think the second thing is like, I've always been a little bit of a hippie, holistic, all this, all that. But I think I mistook the things that I was doing for myself as a healthy lifestyle, and it wasn't. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I eat pretty healthy. No, girl, you don't. Because you still be eating McDonald's out here in these streets. That's actually canceling out all the other issue doing. It's not. But you know what I mean? Like I felt in my mind I was being healthy because I would only do it. Just dumb, And so I was like, okay. But like, because I think that's what smart people get to do. We get to pragmaticize our way through our decisions. And my Lord, how unhealthy that is. So now, instead of the occasional spa appointment or the occasional chiropractor appointment, like I go to the chiropractor every week, and I was going like once a month, so I wasn't like not going. But now I'm so much more thoughtful about actually what does chiropractic health do for me? Like how is it actually like literally changing the hormones in my body when I go? So I'm a lot more knowledgeable about my health. Eating better for real this time. I take way too many supplements, but now I get it. I'm like, oh, I know what these do for my body. And like I'm actually doing like my devotionals in the morning in real life. You know what I mean? I'm like, one, I'll never want to be apart from Jesus like that again. So that's clear. But also how centering it is to have faith and to be in tune with faith feels very different to me now than it did before. So those are just a few things that like I have drastically changed. Oh, for the entrepreneurs, business owners, I'd say too, having a team for real. I think we typically do, or let me speak for myself. What I had previously done was I was like, okay, when I get to this amount per month, I'm going to expand my team. Now my mindset is how much money do I need to make to have this person on my team? So I'm not waiting until I get to a threshold. Like I'm seeking out positions. I'm interviewing people without money. And I'm trying to figure out how much will you cost me because you are what I need. And let me work my way backward into the budget. And that has given me a lot of like peace, and a lot of just like leeway to do what I need to do. I feel like that was a really long answer. My bad, y'all.
Not at all. Not at all.
Some of the things that I definitely heard you said was just really understanding what your needs are, your limits are, what your boundaries are, and that sort, right? And I think that is definitely self-awareness is definitely the first piece of that. But I wanted to see if you could share, because you're consulting other businesses to basically have them create spaces, and then there's other people who are employees at corporations, and somebody else is determining the culture for them, so they may know their limits, but they're not in a space where they can actually communicate that. So I wanted to see if you could talk to kind of both sides of that dynamic of like, if you're in a leadership position, how do you actually cultivate that space where people are able to bring their whole self to work and understand their limits? And then for somebody who's in that position who understands their limits or is learning their limits, but they really feel like they are not in a space where they can have that conversation. Like, what are some of the steps that they can take to kind of bridge the gap into leadership and kind of make things a little bit more comfortable for them in their situation?
Yeah. I want to start by saying something that's probably a little controversial, but like authenticity at work, it costs. It does. And I was a big proponent of not telling people to be authentic in spaces that felt unsafe. Like, I actually think it costs too much for it to be authentic in spaces that like are too unsafe for you. But I don't think the alternative to that, though, is being a different version of yourself. But I do think there are times and seasons where we get to conserve. Like this workplace don't need all of me. And that's where I really got with my job. It's like, they don't need all I have to offer. I don't need a star for going above and beyond. Because those sorts of things are oppressive cultural norms that we have learned. And it also speaks to a lot of self-worth stuff that we have learned, that we got to be the best. And who said it? And actually, like, give me this meets expectations and that's good enough. You know what I mean? And so I do think like, one of the biggest things I would always encourage people to do is like investigate their relationship with work, investigate their relationship or the correlation between worth and work, because so much like we put too much sometimes into what they say we are, and they like being the job, being whatever, as an indication of how good we actually are. But what if we abandoned that? What if we decided that, you know what, like I'll decide that like meets expectations here is good enough. And if they want to talk to me about doing more, whatever, I'll just decide that I can hear that. And I actually don't have to respond to it in a way that is any different for as long as I'm doing the job that they pay me to do. Right. I think that's a really important boundary to set for yourself in a corporate workspace. But it starts with what you believe about what you need from a job. You know what I mean? So that's one angle of it. As a leader, I have a thing. I'm like, everybody can make mistakes here. We just got to make different ones. Like, that's all I care about. Like, I just want us to make different mistakes. But it's also modeling a lot of, because here you can't be authentic at Pivot, but it's modeling authenticity, but it's also modeling grace and justice and accountability as well. Because what we can't have is this free form thing where everybody just do what they want to do. Everybody's authentic and nothing gets done. Like, that's actually not how business runs, right? But it is to say, like, we can have really meaningful conversations. We can be really thoughtful. We can wrestle with ideas and we can hold each other accountable, myself included. Like, you can tell me when I missed a deadline that impacted your work, and that's okay. And so those types of conversations, to your point, Denise, I think really work in both environments. Like, we can actually tell the truth in spaces that allow us to show up authentically. And for spaces that don't, we get to tell enough. We get to tell enough in ways that leave us feeling safe, because it's often very challenging to repair a non-safe environment when you've been exposed in one. It's really challenging to come back from that.
That's real. And it is a little taboo because, that's all people talking about now.
No.
But then it's not going to come and save you when you ain't got no job.
What I'm talking about, you being in people's job, being too authentic. And also too, like, I just don't think corporations deserve that. I don't think they fully deserve it from you. You know what I mean? I think there are a lot of corporations who really, or a lot of organizations that they really do want to get it right. They really do. And they just don't know how. And the reason they don't know how is because the systems and the structures in the organization are not aligned with what leaders are encouraging you to do. Leaders are telling you, be authentic, da, da, da. But it's not systemically set up that way. Because if I am authentic, now I am, and I've heard this, I've been through this. It's like, now it's like, Catherine, you need to relax a little bit so that these people don't feel this way. Or, your opinion was too strong in that meeting, da, da, da. You know what I mean? And so it's like, oh, you actually don't want me to be the unedited version of myself. But what I realized for myself is like, that's actually not even your fault. This is what I get to control. And me pulling back is not me being less of myself. It's actually me being more in control of who I am and how I want to share that with you. And I've decided that you don't deserve more than 5 amens or okays in this meeting. And I say nothing else. It's like, yep, I agree, Bob. Let's keep it moving. You know what I mean? Like, that's all you deserve from me. I don't know why I said Bob, but you know what I mean? Like, I think we reframe that. I think though, if we reframe that for people, then it's less about what I'm hiding from people and more about what I'm choosing to share.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, it's not even what you're saying, it's how you're saying it, right? And I think that if you don't establish a certain level of rapport, communication styles, working styles, right? Like you mentioned at the top of this call, I don't mind being interrupted. There's other people who are like, I'm on do not disturb for a reason, right? Because I need to focus. So there's certain things that really can set the stage for success.
Yep.
And like understanding people's communication style. Kayla and I are very direct communicators. We direct communicators with each other. We tell our team we are direct communicators. You might hear Denise say something to Kayla, Kayla say something to Denise, and you'd be like, "Whoa!" But we're gonna hug each other right after, right?
Yes. We all right.
We all right, right? So
here, yeah.
But you just have to you have to kind of like set the stage for that sometimes, right? And I think what you were saying too of like, we're in a really, really blessed place to be able to have conversations with friends, work with friends, make money with friends. That's like a different level of understanding of who this person is that I'm working with that you are never going to get with a lot of people, right? Unless you work somewhere like 10, 7, 8, 10 years, which people are not even doing nowadays. Like they're not even establishing those kind of relationships.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, right? When understanding just all the different things that come into how the dynamics play out in a specific room. There's a question here just about like differences of opinion, right? And how that's just something that happens. Yeah. But I think that you don't really start to understand that like, I can have a difference of opinion. I can disagree with somebody. I don't have to agree with somebody. I think like people are very fragile a lot. Or you can't even ask somebody like, Kayla, why did you decide to wear this skin shirt today? And not have people not get like defensive about things, right? So we are also like in a broader environment. People are a little bit more on edge, but in work environments, things can escalate pretty quickly, right? So can you talk a little bit about just like how you've had to, how you've had to like operate in those instances where maybe you had a difference of opinion from somebody and it was like, no, I actually have to show up and this is how this is going to go. And how did it actually, turn out?
What is Kayla over here laughing at? Is what I'm trying to understand.
No, something.
There's so many examples of how this amazing woman has had to navigate that kind of opportunity, we'll call it. Oh, so I'm just thinking of something.
I don't know. This is interesting because I think this has changed for me over the years, right? I think like I've evolved a lot. Here's what I would say. I think like you have to decide what you care about and what hill you want to die on, right? Like, and
battles or wait, pick your battles?
Yeah. And so much of like my maturity has now informed that actually everything I don't need to win. I really don't, because there's so much, it's a lot of ego in that, truly a lot of ego in that. As I've gotten older, as I've gotten more thoughtful, also as having this team has been such a blessing to me because, it's one thing to talk about, diversity of thought. It's another thing to fully embrace diversity of thought. Like that's actually a vibe that most people are not great at. I was not great at it for a really, really long time. So when we talk about this idea of wrestling with ideas, because that's what I call it, like, let's wrestle with ideas. And I'd like to focus it on wrestling with ideas versus wrestling with each other. So I'm more apt to say something like, Denise, let's wrestle with that idea some more, versus, oh, I didn't like that you said that. Because what I'm learning, what I've learned in my people work is, to your point, people are really struggling with their own decisions, truly. And COVID did a lot of this to us. COVID raised our need for individualization. I mean, it was literally a time period where if somebody coughed on you, you could die, for real. You know what I mean? And so it made us very adverse to people being in our space, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally as well, right? And then also we had this like real proximity thing where we were separated from people. Like, we're going to see the effects of this for like generations to come. But that's why I actually think people struggle with disagreeing, truly, because everyone is attempting usually to defend why they feel, why they think, etc. So I think the first thing that I've really tried to focus on is, one, make it about the idea, not the person, right? It's like, that's an interesting idea. Let's wrestle with that some more, right? The second piece of it is make it about the solution and not the problem. It's like, all right, what are 5 ways we can get this right? I actually just used this today. I was working with a team and I was like, all right, this is one of the ones. Y'all finna be cutting up in here. Cool. It's like, all right, what are 5 ways that this can go right? So let's focus on, and even from a dopamine standpoint, and I think this is a wellness trick that I use for myself when I'm working with these teams. It's like, how can we create as much agreement as possible? So I'll even sometimes be really funny and be like, y'all, what color is the sky today? And then like, blue. But it actually matters when we agree, because every moment that we agree, like, we're creating alignment, right? And so it really is thinking about, instead of attacking the person, or instead of sort of also to being married to changing people's ideas. Like I gave up with that. I'm like, I don't need to be trying to change your idea. I actually don't need to change your idea. I get to learn from your perspective, and I get to accept your idea, even if I don't change mine. Yeah, that is significantly powerful, because now I'm not in this space of fighting with you. I'm now just curious. I now just want to know what you think, right? It doesn't mean I'm going to do anything with it, but I just become really curious about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. For me, those types of things have significantly changed how I engage. What some would call conflict, I don't even call it that. That's why I always say, like, wrestling with ideas. It's like, I'm not even, because conflict, root word, confrontation, it just sounds bad. It literally creates anxiety in people's bodies when you're like, hey, like, can we talk about this? I didn't like the way you, we're not even doing all that, And so it's like, hey, like,
I don't think you understand how triggering that was to everybody on this call. Like, we have all heard that at some
all of us went
in corporate America. Just
have a conversation. No, I'm leaving. Goodbye.
No, thank you.
right.
Yeah. But I think good leaders have mastered how that can be so different, right? Like, what the setup needs to be, what the scene needs to be for people. It's one of the workshops we do in our teams. And it's like, what do you need when you need to hear something that you don't want to hear? Like, what do you need? And that's a fair conversation to ask your team, to ask your boss. It's like, hey, when I need to have a conversation with you, and it's not going to be in favor of a thought that you have, like, what do you need to hear? And it's always nice to ask that before there is a thing, like, one question a week should be a really fair question to, like, dig into insight with the people that we get to work with. And how it impacts our own mental health is, like, the more information we have, the easier it is to navigate. So now we're not anxious. We're not stressed out. I had a friend whose stomach would get in knots every one-on-one with her manager, every single one. And I'm like, it's not healthy. And the reason it's not healthy is because the more we're stressed, our body is creating some cellular stuff that we actually don't want, because stress actually creates cancer. Literally, it's, you know what I mean? And so we can't take lightly these little moments that we have repeatedly, and that's what I was taking lightly, the little moments of, like, stress in my body, whatever. It's like, oh no, like, that actually is the recipe for sickness, is the recipe for disease, is the recipe for regenerative illness, literally. And so I think we get to think about, how then can I be proactive in some of these, like, challenging moments, so that my body's not involuntarily creating sickness and disease for me.
So you can buy all of those products and spend hundreds of dollars and lots of time, Or you can get a box for $25 today for your first box, and it's worth over $100 delivered to your doorstep and then automated from then on every 3 months. Make sure you subscribe today at BetternessBox.com. It's worth it.
I'm wondering if there are, some more of those patterns. I know you mentioned, seeing people get their stomachs in a knot because they're getting ready to have a one-on-one, and so many other things. One of our mutual friends talked about how before she left her job, she was like, had migraines, right? Like, this is a thing, and could not work, like for real, like debilitating migraines. And I think it's more common than we think it is, especially amongst Black women. A lot of our listeners are Black women who are actual leaders, right, of people. And so, one, I'm sure that we can take away that we're going to model this for our teams. But are there any other things, tactics, quick tips that can be used to kind of create that culture and atmosphere, right, where we alleviate some of that individualism and just kind of the remnants of what COVID did, even just, being by yourself. If you're not going to the office no more, you just socially not there, no, like, right? Like, it's not lost a lot of our social skills. Yeah. And just the comfort of like what it looks like to have a conversation with somebody. Because now it's like, oh, I have to find time on their calendar and set up a meeting. And now it's a thing. And it becomes all of this stuff instead of like, girl, you getting lunch? Okay, let's go. Like, it's, remember those days? Remember that back in the day?
Oh, back in the day, we just went. We didn't schedule it on the calendar.
So weird. So yeah, anything that leaders can do to be more, I guess, supportive and make sure that they're creating. And again, mostly Black women professionals who are listening, but anybody could come across this, right? Look, so how does it look to hold other leaders even more accountable to creating that, if that feels like something they want to take on?
Amen. Right? It's for me. Yeah, I think there are a couple of things I'm thinking about. One is really simple. You talk about like meeting culture. Meeting culture is so real. And it actually creates a lot of anxiety in people. And I tend to see the people like that show up to the meetings overly prepared. Like, I actually feel really excited when people show up to my meetings and kind of just like, all right, let's go, versus like stress and like 500 pages of notes. Like, that's actually not a good sign. You know what I mean? It's like, no, Kayla's not prepared because she's prepared because like this is a stressful environment, and like she doesn't want to feel the repercussions of a punitive space if she, whatever. So I think one, like, we just got to tune in to like the things that people are consistently doing and be thoughtful and ask questions. It's like, why are you doing that? I think it's really healthy to be curious about the behaviors that people show us. But as it pertains to meetings, like, one thing I've really tried to do is I've tried my best to just send out like pre-notes, like, here's what I want to talk about, here's what I want to ask. So that for some people, I'm a pretty direct communicator, but there are people that need to process information. And I'm not like that. I can think quick on my feet, but I don't want to take for granted like the mental and emotional space that someone else might need that I can easily provide by just telling people what I want. Right. I don't even pop meetings on people's calendars until I ask them first, because I don't want people to feel or believe that I own their time, because I don't. And I don't get to just make a meeting just because you work on my team. Right. I think also, like, what does it look like to share power with people? In conversations and meetings, whatever. It's like, hey, like, I called us together to meet, but like, you go first. Like, is there anything that like you want to be thoughtful of, that you want to share with me? Anything I can do better to help you? So whatever that looks like, giving people the opportunity to speak first as a leader is really powerful, and makes just so much space, and creates so much humility in the way that you show up. I would also say too, like, really holding fast to your own boundaries. Like, I have a thing, like, I don't take meetings on Friday unless I absolutely have to. But I think that rigidness, like that rigidity, is really healthy for other people to see. Because when I'm telling you to take care of yourself, it's like I am telling you because I'm modeling it. So many times leaders, we say one thing and then we actually model something very different which then creates an obligatory response from our teams to actually do what we're doing and not what we say. It's the greatest BS of all times. And I really hate to take your vacation, but then you don't take yours. I actually can't take my vacation because I don't know what the repercussions are because you don't take yours, And so I think we've really got to, I think the most powerful thing we can do is model what we believe to be true, but also study, like culture is a very nuanced thing for a lot of people to understand. And so studying what actually impacts culture is actually not pizza parties. It's not days off. Those are not cultural things. Those are what I call popsicles on hot sunny days. You know what I mean? But build a gazebo, build an outdoor space with air conditioner. That's a solution, right? And so what systems are you championing to make sure that the culture is what it needs to be, not just the quick hits, but as leaders, like how are we advocating for people in systemic change in our organizations, like the performance management processes or the onboarding, like do people have laptops on their first day of work? Like those things actually matter when we talk about people's mental wellness, but also their emotional and psychological safety. It matters to be prepared for. And so I think leaders can be a lot more thoughtful about going beyond the open door and the pizza parties. It's like, yes, and I am actually changing systems that make it make sense for you to be here and be here well. I think that's what we can really be thoughtful of.
I love it. Amazing.
You're crazy.
Oh, real quick. I've been thinking about this the whole time. Y'all, yes, Catherine is my good friend. No, I did not approve of her eating McDonald's. Okay? I told her every time. Every time she got it, I made sure.
You got kids, get it.
I was like, when you have kids, it's necessary sometimes.
It's just a vibe.
Whatever.
It's just necessary.
I thought it was Wendy's, but I didn't know you were going to McDonald's. That actually makes me feel
kids
some type of
prefer McDonald's over Wendy's because their toys are better. And so, their 350 nuggets, they had me in a chokehold for a minute.
Hey, every mom has had a fish fillet. I mean,
listen, just is, but I think it's a really interesting conversation though about just like our food is this crap, you know what I mean? And what I've realized too is it's actually really challenging to find like healthy quick service options.
For sure.
Truly, I mean, like I use Factor a lot and they're pretty good, but I mean, once you go through all 200 of their meals, then so it's challenging, but it's one of those things. It's like, oh, how much do I care about my long-term health? And that whole like you get one body vibe, I felt that with my whole soul for the past 4 months. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, oh, for real. Okay. Bet, and so it's causing a lot of transition, but it's a challenging part of like having a lot of responsibility for both yourself but also for other people.
That's real, friend. I'll be in and out every now and again. I was gonna say something I was gonna say. Dang it. Oh, I don't remember. Something about us getting off a topic. Oh, well, can't remember.
I actually think that goes well into this kind of last little segment, right? Just understanding the demands and the responsibility that is on a lot of people, both in their jobs and at home and in their families and in life and in all the things, right? How do we begin to like reframe that idea of work-life balance? Because you never really, there's no balance, right? Like what is balance? It's this, and that's never the reality. So like, how do we get to a place where we can start to reframe that and make it something that like we're living and we're showing up in all of these spaces in a way that is actually sustainable for you as an individual first, and then all of the other, things that you're responsible for continuing to push forward.
Yeah, I call it work-life compatibility because you're right. There's never a balance, but I think they can be really compatible. And I think that what that looks like is at one point in time, one is more important than the other one, and making peace with that. Like there are some times where work is more important than my family, and I'm not ashamed to say that, right? Like It just is. And so I give it more than I give my family. For me, being shame of that is wasting a lot of energy and creating a lot more stress than my body actually needs, right? So I can just admit to myself that, like, yeah, in this season, this is more important, or in this moment, whatever. But I also think the other side of that too is like just being thoughtful of what support you need. And I think people's first thing, goes to money that they don't have. And I get it 500%. Because I'd say we be skirting on the edge around here. But what I think is true is, very similar to the business conversation that I had earlier. It's like thinking about the life we want and figuring out how to back into that. Like how to back into the resources that we actually believe will help us live the best version of our lives. As business owners, as a couple, as a family, whatever that looks like. And so it's like, all right, what support do you need? What sacrifices do you get to make? How do you get to invite other people into your life in a really meaningful way that allows you to do that? And some of this goes back to Denise, your earlier question is just like, how do you ask for what you need, even when it's really uncomfortable, from your spouse, from your in-laws, from your friends? I depend on my friends a lot. My friends are probably, I call us the group chat. You know what I mean? I depend on the group chat for a lot of things. And like, I'll bounce in there, I think I did a while ago, like, can somebody watch my kid? You know what I mean? And most of my friends are single, but I don't discount how much they love me, how much they care about me, and how much they actually offer to my world. And I don't think this is about parents or not parents, but I think we sometimes discount how much people actually want to support us because we just don't ask. And so I am in a season, and I've been in a season probably this last year of like, oh no, I just ask for what I need. And that makes my life really compatible in the ways that are really important for me. And I'm spending a lot more time doing stuff I enjoy too, like things that actually make me laugh and bring me joy. And I think sometimes we get away from thinking about, what actually brings joy to the work or to the life that we lead. Because I feel like that creates a lot of compatibility inherently when we just enjoy doing it. I'm like, I actually like my kids a lot. They're so much fun and they make me laugh. So let me spend more time with them. You know what I mean? Let me just like hang out with them. My doctor kept saying, you need to do things that reduce your stress level. Maybe time away from the kids. I was like, actually, time with my kids would significantly reduce because that oxytocin, the way it's set up, I'm actually really good with them climbing all over me, So I think it's making some very definitive choices, but then also truly identifying, when was the last time I laughed? What song actually makes my like lips curve when I don't even notice it? Like what TV shows, like I can put on Insecure and I'm guaranteed to smile 3 to 5 times during the episode. You know what I mean? Like unprompted. And I'm like, oh, those are the things that bridge the gap between these like maybe really tense moments or like moments where life be lifing and work be working. So I think that would be my MO for how I would think about that.
No, I think that's so key. It's the little things, right? I told you earlier we went to Float 60, my mom and I, and we were like, we're just gonna have Mama Mondays. Like it is what it is.
I love that.
Oh, after they give us a little tea, and there's a little, the little tea strainer thing is a little guy floating on the edge of the cut. And my mom was like, I look at him and he just makes me happy. And I was like, well, buy it. Like, get one for the house. You know what I mean? We got 3 because we giving one to her, whatever. But it's like this little guy floating on the edge of her little teacup was the most adorable thing. And she was like, this little guy brings me joy. And it's just like a memory of like a one unique experience that we had together. So it's those little things that you have to like, we're so busy moving through life that we don't take kind of inventory of those things. And the more you can bring those in, the more you're kind of like restore your own joy and really your own humanity, right? Like
that part.
Figure out how to tap out of that like autopilot and really get back into these little moments of like humanity and bring that back in. There's one more thing that I wanted to touch on before we kind of get into this little wrap up. We've talked a lot about just like self-awareness and really like understanding that at certain times, certain things have to take priority, right? You said certain times, like my family takes priority, my job takes priority. It is what it is. And I have to be able to communicate that to people. But can you talk a little bit about acknowledging when your capacity changes for all the things, right? So I think that that's like one thing that we don't talk about often is like, we're in our 20s, you go to your 30s, you go to 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
your capacity actually adjusts, shifts, goes left, right, up, down, sideways.
On it to an
It goes backwards, right? Like, capacity is a huge thing that I think a lot of people just don't even acknowledge, because that then determines like, okay, I used to be in this friend group of like 10 and we used to do brunch every Sunday and haha kiki and we were out 6 nights a week. But now I'm like every 6 months, I might see 3 people, right? So like, can you talk about just like capacity, how to acknowledge when capacity shifts, adjusts, changes, and kind of like what that means for how you kind of move forward in determining what you can take on and what you can prioritize?
That's so good. And the reason why that's so good is because I think 2 or 3 years ago, my word was capacity, right? And, you know, and a lot happened in my life with my husband, like he lost his best friend, we lost his sister. We took on sort of this different role with her kids, being thoughtful of his mom, and then my family and my sister got diagnosed with cancer. Like we just had this back-to-back situation for, I feel like 2.5 years straight. And one of the things that I think we often conflate is capacity and will. We have the will to do a lot that sometimes our capacity cannot handle, right? And so it really becomes this exercise to figure out, is this what I want to do because I want to do it? And then if I want to do it, then what is the criteria that I run it through for what I actually can do, right? Like it's acknowledging the will to do and then the ability to do. And I'll say for a long time, I felt that I could do it and I felt fine doing it. But this is kind of going back to that, I was absorbing a lot and like taking a lot of people's stuff. It really got to the point where I was like, told my friend, I was like, I don't want to hear nothing about y'all boys. I don't want to hear nothing about these booze. I cannot. I can't take another story. I can't take another advice session. I don't have it, because I started to feel overwhelmed in spaces that I shouldn't have felt overwhelmed in. And I think for me, that was an indicator that, oh, I am reaching my emotional capacity, or I'm reaching my physical or mental capacity, because things that once brought me joy and that once fueled me actually feel really heavy. And for me, so I think it's really important to understand, like, is this will or is this capacity for me? Like, am I taking this on because I actually have the capacity to do so, or just because I have a really good heart and I really want to? But then it's also like identifying, like, what are the indicators that like I actually cannot. And I get the right to change my mind. Like I get to the right, and it's challenging. All my friends, they be doing team the most. And so often I feel FOMO, like if they're doing something and I can't do it, right? But it's also like, you know what? My will to be like healthy and to not be rushed and to not be moved around is actually more significant than the fact that I actually could go if I wanted to. Um, but then it does, I think, really healthy conversations with your friends and with your family about your capacity is really fair to say like, hey, I really want to do that. I don't have the capacity to do it. I was literally telling my friends this when they were talking to me about like stuff. I was like, hey, I don't have it. I can't even let you vent to me right now. Like I can't hear another sad story about nothing. I just, and so being thought, even my kids, I'm like, listen, let's just play. Let's just play. And if you need something, go ask your dad, because I cannot give more. And so I know my indicators, they're lack of patience, because I'm a really patient person. But when I started feeling impatient, that's an indicator that I've reached capacity. When I start feeling overwhelmed or anxious about doing things that once brought me joy, that's an indicator that I'm at capacity. When I get paralyzed by decision making, for someone like me who's really decisive, typically, I know that there's too much stuff. And my therapist says something to me that I will never, I cannot unhear it. And she was like, Catherine, like the mind is finite. She's like, it's so limited. And for every thought that goes in, it means that another thought cannot go in. It only can go so far. And so like, if you are, if you have so much in your mind, then like it's almost like arrogant of you to believe that more can fit unless you release the stuff that's already there. And I was like, but I was like, no, you're right. I'm like, the mind is so finite, right? It's like Jesus, he unlimited. Me, I'm limited, right? And so tapping back into that humanity, it's like, I would love to deal with this and that and that. But until I release some of the stuff that currently exists, I just can't. And so I think those are ways that we can be really thoughtful about when our capacity is shifting, what it starts to feel like in our bodies, what it starts to feel like in our minds, and how we get to help people know around us that it's not because I don't want to, but it's because I just absolutely cannot.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's you said have a conversation with all the people around you, but it really starts with a conversation with yourself, because like you said, you have FOMO, right? You're like, I want to be doing this,
I want to do all the things,
but you have to get to a point where you can acknowledge that like it's actually not healthy for me to even have one conversation, or that's in this lane or whatever. So the conversation, it really does start with yourself, right?
Yeah. And I mean, there was a season where I was like, I can only do stuff with my friends that like is stuff I'm already doing. So it's like, you want to hang out with me? I'm about to go to the grocery store.
We're over here. I have the Costco friends. I have the friends that are like,
yes,
I actually have to talk to somebody about this. Do you have the capacity? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if somebody says no, honor their response, right? So you do have to have those healthy relationships to be able to say, like you said, like, we're over here at the house.
Listen, we at the house, but come on,
it's go to the grocery store. We're at the house. Like, if you want to come hang out,
come
all, because this is where we are.
I'm the couch friend in this season. I mean, I was at Kayla's house the other day. I'm like, that's what I got. Y'all go out on the weekends. Call me when you at the house during the week. I can come.
I had a friend a couple of weeks ago, my friend, in a chat with her sister. She was like, Denise, can we come over next Sunday? She's a scheduler, right? I'm like, I don't have the capacity. I need to go up somewhere. Don't put me on 17 things today, because I'm doing 17.
Call me next Sunday, and then I'll probably be free and just come on.
No, over. Look, I literally was like, yeah, sure, you guys can come over. We do a whole barbecue, because it was like, y'all are at the house, like, we here, like, whatever. It didn't require anything outside of like, my family was going to eat Sunday night dinner anyway.
Yep.
We're here. If more people come, that's a couple extra slabs of ribs that's going on the grill, right? So it didn't require anything like any additional mental energy than what was already being given.
Already allocated.
Yes. And I was just like, absolutely. And they're probably like, why did she cook a whole Sunday dinner? Because we was going to eat Sunday dinner anyway.
We was going to eat.
We got to eat anyway, right? But now, more than welcome. You can come, because this is what we're doing. So yes, capacity and will. I love how you framed that for us. And I know we're right on time, so we're gonna kind of close things out here. But thank you so much.
Wait, Kayla.
Okay, Kayla, you have another.
Wait, it's me.
It's me.
Like,
I just want to make this. Listen, I'm the friend who takes on more than they were asked for.
No, we know it.
And so shut up. I want us to acknowledge, for those of you who are listening, who might be like me, to the point where I have several, and not as many anymore, but I used to have all of these alarms to remind my friends of things, like remind Danny to take her Sunday vitamins on Sunday, and Michelle has to I have to remind her to do this. Every night I would get a reminder, Bim, get up off the couch and go into your bed. Like, and I'd actually do those things. And then if I'd fall off, I would somehow take responsibility for my friend not sleeping well and her back hurting or whatever it is. And for real, take responsibility, y'all. Like, I don't know if y'all are out there, but I'm like you, okay? And we can't do that. So this is, I remember my friends had an intervention. Bim and Catherine came over and had an intervention and said, who are you? You are not God. Like, why do you think that you are so important? And have so much control over somebody's like personal decisions, right? And, you know, it's all love and all the things are great, intentional, but that absorption that Catherine is talking about, right? She would do it in conversation a lot of the time. Everybody's coming to you for advice, right, Catherine? You just like to process things with people. That just is your thing. But for when you reach a capacity issue and you realize like, wait, I don't actually have to do this. Like, this is not even something my friends have asked me for. Where did this come from? That's comes through some therapy, right? To figure out, okay, why do I have to make things okay? Why do I have to make sure everybody's okay? Did I have to do that when I was younger? I had to make sure all things were taken care of and everybody had what they needed because I was the child, but acting as an adult in the household. Oh, okay. That's where that came from. Even I get something from that, right? Like I get some validation from that. I get some like ego boost from that, to admit that you get something from that, to admit that you got it from a toxic place. That's really, really, really important. And so I just want to shout out to the people that might be like me. That's all I wanted to say. Okay.
We're all evolving. No, I mean it is. It's a vibe. It's a vibe to, I think also like to like we can acknowledge the challenge. There's a challenge of being our age at this time because we are constantly challenged with self-reflection and redirection. And that's a lot. That within itself is really exhausting and tiring, to always be evaluating ourselves and excavating things and trying to, that's a lot. That's where for me it's like, where is the joy? Like I'm always asking myself, when was the last time you laughed really hard? Like when was the last, you know what I mean? Like that you actually don't even have to be responsible for the things that you have not, you know what I mean? Like, so how do we give ourselves a break from not just other people's stuff, but like even some of the stuff that like we know we need to do or we know would be beneficial to do, but we don't have to do it all right now. Like we actually don't have to excavate every bad habit that we have in every moment. I think the ones that matter are the ones that like are impacting our health. The ways that we don't experience, the ways that we have headaches and all that, our bodies are always giving us signals. It's not just, oh, I'm 40 now, so my knees. It's like, no. There is something else there. So, you know what I mean? Like, and that we get to be thoughtful about those types of things. But, to your point, it is like, why are we wearing the cape for the whole generation? Elections are coming up. I mean, that's even more challenging, right? Like we shoulder a lot of the responsibility of the current nation on our backs, and that's a lot. It's a lot.
It is. It's not ours to carry. It really isn't.
It's not ours.
Do the best you can with what you got with your life, your family, and yeah. And give it to Jesus. Okay, let Jesus take the
I was like,
wheel,
as a woman of faith,
sure.
I've decided there's a lot of stuff that he can have. And when he delegates to
I
me,
don't want it.
hands and feet, I got you. But otherwise, I'm like, oh, that's yours, G. You got it.
Literally, big G.
Literally. Do your big one on this one because I'm all set. I've tried it my way.
Oh, that's so good.
That needs to be on the shirt. I've tried it my way.
Listen,
like
coming
it's
to
above me now, right?
It's truly above me now. Truly, I mean that's how I was feeling. My health, I was like literally above me, literally. It's like I've tried it all. I'm all set. I'll just lay in this bed until you say no.
Listen, oh Jesus. God is good. All right, let's do our wrap-up session.
Yes. We are going to get into these rapid fire questions. There's no right or wrong answer in any question that we've asked you tonight. But in this section, there is really no right or wrong. All right, let's get right into it. Just let us know the first thing that comes to mind. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Night owl.
I feel like I should question.
You said what? You want to answer?
I feel like I should.
It's not yours to answer.
See, this is doing it again.
Trying to take on more than nobody asked me. Nobody
asked you to answer nobody's question.
And she was ready and like for real.
Ready, like I
could joke.
She got the answers highlighted already on the page.
She was so ready.
And I didn't.
I'm both. I am both, but I'll say night owl for sure. But I'm both probably.
All right.
This girl.
Let's go on.
You can just shake your head if you agree with my answers to make you feel included, okay?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold up for one or two. Like, I don't. How about this? Ask her the next question. So you can't ask the question and answer. Let's.
Fine. Okay. Coffee or tea? Oh, this will be interesting.
Tea.
Okay. I was depends on the day.
All right. What is your go-to stress reliever?
Dang, go-to stress reliever? Got so many. I'd probably say like the chiropractor or like the masseuse. Yeah.
Favorite work from home essential?
My pillow, because I like to work in my bed. So there's that.
So that was gonna be my number one answer, and number two would be like some kind of trash TV on in the background.
Absolutely, the TV, absolutely.
As the yoga instructor, I hope that you are getting up from the bed and stretching at least every once in a while.
Oh, get her!
But you know what? I'm also working out my lymphatic system when I'm in the bed because I'm pumping.
Okay, you're doing okay. I just want to make sure we got some.
Don't let her do.
We're gonna have to check on you. We're checking on you. And then the last one here. What is your go-to healthy snack for work?
I'm really obsessed right now with I have some truffle almonds and I have some rosemary and salt almonds that I really love a lot. And I've also gotten into this dark chocolate seed butter. So good. Oh, and our power berries, Kayla. Our power berries.
Listen, those power berries. I just went to Trader Joe's today. Hey, Black girls at Trader Joe's. Okay.
You didn't have them yesterday. I was mad at you. Those probably, I mean, I said 4, but like those are like my go-to, like without a shadow, like where's the almonds? Where's the seed butter? Where are the power berries?
The dark chocolate coconut almonds. Have you had those, friend?
No, I actually don't like these are naked. They're naked with truffle oil and salt.
Oh, I gotta try those.
Trader Joe's.
Black girls at Trader Joe's.
I have to find these power berries, apparently.
They're delightful.
You've never had power berry sands? The dark chocolate covered? Okay, I'll give you some next month. When you're
like the Brookstone?
No.
The what?
Aren't the company Brookstone?
Oh, the other company. Yeah. But no, don't, it's the one that's like more mainstream. Those are so processed. These are like, no preservatives, no artificial flavors. Because Trader Joe's is the truth. Don't worry. I just got a bag. It'll still be here next month when you get here. If it's not, I'll get a new bag. It's fine.
All right. I'm going to try some power berries next month.
Listen, we need a Trader Joe's sponsorship. Hey, y'all.
No, we just gave all the snacks.
Factor, we love y'all. Okay. I use Factor too.
I thought about that as soon as I said the names. I was like, they need to be sponsoring these episodes. Give us a code for the people.
Factor.
That's all we need.
We've worked with Factor. There's some good people over there. So
that's actually a great point. We need to reach out to some. Anyways, okay. Catherine, this has been a fantastic.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences with us today. Oh, this is funny. In the script, it says, "Thank you for having me." But you already said.
Is it authentic? Da, 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 da. Who knows? I'm just kidding.
Authenticity.
Before we let you go, Catherine, one great episode this afternoon, evening. I don't know, wherever people are listening. Is there anything that you would like to share about your work? Where can the people find you? Where can the listeners, find you, follow your work with you? Let us know how they can connect.
Thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to share. LinkedIn is my favorite place to connect with people. It's just so easy. I'm always on there. Catherine L. Wheeler on LinkedIn. And then our website is www.pivot180. It's all spelled out.com. Want to learn more about our work? It's there.
She's amazing. And 180 is ONEADY. BetternessBox.
Yeah.
Yes.
I made it really
spelled out.
hard for people. Spelling
No, you
test.
didn't. You guys need me on a little video, and I
No,
can do
it's
the.
really weird. Really weird.
Okay, that is kind of weird. All right, and of course, don't forget to check out Betterness Box at betternessbox.com. It's a curated box filled with goodies to help you automate self-care and prioritize your well-being, no matter how busy you are. Head over to our website because we have a new box launching in June, which we're so excited about. It's the She Is Shining box because we want you to shine all summer long. Make sure to go to our website and subscribe today.
Yes, if you enjoyed listening to this episode of the Good, Better, Betterness podcast, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear from our listeners, so let us know what you thought.
Yes. Thanks for joining, everyone. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, you are good, you are better, and you are betterness. Okay? Period. Thanks, Catherine. Love you. Mwah.
Hey sis, we thank you for honoring yourself by taking the time to listen to the Good, Better, Betterness podcast. Thank you for joining us on the journey to betterness.